Good afternoon, everyone. It is wonderful to see you all here. I know there are a lot of things going on in Hastings today, so thank you for coming here and prioritizing this and being here. My name is Greg Allen Pickett. I'm one of the pastors here at First Presbyterian Church of Hastings, and I am delighted that this is the second annual Sockleman-Throckmorton Faith and Science Symposium. Here at the Presbyterian Church, we talk about the complementary relationship between faith and science, and we bring in speakers who can also speak to that and have some scientific knowledge or background, but also a faith perspective. And so last year we kicked off this series and it went very well, and so we were excited to do it again this year, and particularly excited that our speaker said yes. And our speaker is not somebody who needs any introduction from me, but Clay Anderson, who is Nebraska's first and only astronaut, and also a graduate of Hastings College. Also was a student of Dr. Sockleman, that this Faith and Science Symposium is named after. And so he was very gracious to agree to come and join us and has been here all weekend. We've gotten a lot of work out of him between Friday and today, and we're very grateful for his willingness to be part of our community and to share his perspectives with us. And you're not here to hear me talk. So without further ado, I'm honored to turn things over to Clay Anderson.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Doc S. is here, and his son, Tom, is here. And Tom went from here up kind of to here. It's kind of cool to see him again, right? Because we've seen each other since he was little, but I only remember him as the little guy that ran around Sockleman's house when he was a kid, you know, causing trouble and getting in the way of all of us famous physics students that were destroying Dr. Sockleman's light system above his ping pong table. But that's a story for another time. What I want to do today is, I've titled this Gravity, Grace, and the Power of Perseverance. And just so you know, and just to be transparent, that was thank you, Chat GPT. So that's a good thing. But I want to start out, I'm going to do it differently than I did the other day. I talked to Dr. Sockleman, and we needed to talk a little bit about the history of the world. What? It's okay. Oh, wait till you see the next picture coming. So the asteroid there, the big, we call those dirt clods in Nebraska. The asteroid, the biggest one, is about the size of the one that hit the Earth, and it caught it. I learned this from National Geographic, by the way. It hit the Earth and it hit a sulfur pit, and it caused this big uproar of stuff coming up in the sky, and it blocked the sun. And with no sunlight, then all the plants died, and when all the plants died, all the brontosauruses died, and when all the brontosauruses died, all the T-Rexes died. Everybody died. If they would have had a space program, they'd still be alive today. So Doc S. was telling me about some people and their non-belief that the universe and dinosaurs were around a long time ago. And so the smaller asteroid, though, a cool story, it landed over a city called Chelyabinsk, Russia. Many years ago, you may have heard about it, but it never hit the ground, right? It got into the atmosphere and it heated up so much and got so hot it exploded, and it created a pressure wave that went across the entire city, and it broke windows and shook buildings and caused a lot of adults to soil their underwear. And oh, and now the fun part of the program. So I want to show some different pictures today than I showed Friday, and I want you to tell me what the caption is, okay? Just to get you started, loosen you up a little bit. So here, I'm going to give you this first one for free. Yep, I'm peeing in the water. Okay, this is very astronaut, faith, and science based, right? How about this one? Yeah, you could always go to Tom Cruise. That's a good guess, but it's incorrect. What do you have against male pattern baldness? And by the way, that's Alan Poindexter. Dex was my commander on STS-31, my second flight. Dex passed away a couple years after we landed due to a stroke, heart attack, when he was jet skiing with his kids. And his father was Admiral Poindexter. So Dex was a cool dude. How about this one? You're close. Take me to your leader is close. It's typical government employee. I was I didn't do that, but I was a government employee, so I can make fun of us. How about this one? This is a good one. Yep, Surfing USA, Hang 10, those are all incorrect. Those are good answers, but they're incorrect. Your government tax dollars at work. I think this kind of activity would be canceled by Doge, but I'm not sure. And that's my EVA spacewalking partner, Rick Mastracchio from Connecticut. How about this one? One of my favorites. Does this suit make my butt look too big? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Because that day I woke up and the first thing I did was put on a diaper. Did you hear that, Isaac? I wore a diaper in that picture. And then after I put my diaper on, I put on long underwear, Patagonia, only the best for our United States astronauts. And then I put on went to the room, walked down the hall, my Patagonia diaper suit, and we sat down and put on our pressure suit that would keep us safe if we when we went into space or came home from space. It has an oxygen bottle attached to it that will give you 10 minutes of oxygen. In Columbia, none of this would have mattered during Columbia. It just wouldn't have. But we have a bottle of oxygen that gives you 10 minutes unless you're scared to death, and then it gives you like 5 because you're right. So kind of cool story there. And this one, Isaac, you should get this one. Right on the nose is good, but it's incorrect. The answer is, if it's not yellow, it can't be urine, right? Oh, wow, I wasn't expecting this at a Faith and Science Symposium. So it's kind of hard to read those, I apologize, but as an astronaut, we were expected to have a series of things that we would do, that we would represent. And the first one is relationships. We all know how important those are, and those are very important to me in the world of faith and science. We had to do stewardship, and I know the pastor loves that one. Competence, of course, is pretty easy to figure out. You have to be competent when you're flying in a jet at 650 miles per hour, even if you're a kid from Ashland who never got into a jet until he became an astronaut. Personal behavior is an important one to me that not all of my astronaut colleagues honor, but I try to be honest, transparent, straightforward, and do the right thing. Lifelong commitment, I'm not sure about that one, but that's why I'm here, is because I believe my lifelong commitment to pay you back for paying taxpayer dollars for allowing me to be an astronaut and travel into space is for me to tell stories and for me to inspire Isaac and Anna over here and all the people in this audience to do the right thing and to share and to continue pushing the boundaries of space. Teamwork, very obvious, right? We can't do anything by ourselves. I didn't do any of this by myself. I had a lot of help. And then finally, integrity. That's a big one for me. I believe in integrity. I believe in telling the truth. I believe in being open and straightforward with people even when it's hard. And so I hang on that one, and competence and personal behavior very, very highly. So, to everybody in this room, especially the young people, consider this. Anna and Isaac, I'm going to pick on you. You're just like me. You're just like me. That's a kid from Ashland, Nebraska, a town of 1,800 who got to go to space because of the people around him, his parents, his family, his teachers, his coaches, his school, right? And that, by the way, the white things, those are malted milk balls from Iowa State University back when they had the contract for space food. They have that contract no longer because, of course, those do not look at all like malted milk balls. So I talked to Iowa State before I flew, and they said, Clay, what's one of your favorites? I love malted milk balls. Well, we can make you malted milk balls. That ain't them. Malted milk balls are supposed to be what color? Because they're coated with, and on the inside they have a crunchy center. You know what those are made of? How, what? You said it, I think. Oh no, but you're close. Styrofoam is not the correct answer. Soybeans. Soybeans. And there's a rule in space that I don't know if you know that. Whenever you're living on a space station, you open a package of food, you have to consume the entire package. Yeah. Those are nasty. And Fyodor and Oleg wouldn't eat any of them. I had to eat them all, and it was choking them down. I had 3 more bags. They never got open. So we have some kids here. I think it's important for the kids and their parents and grandparents to understand how I got where I got. And first is I had to have a dream, and that was very important. That dream was nurtured at Ashland Greenwood High School in the right picture and Hastings College in the left picture. In Nebraska and Ashland, I was a theater kid because in Ashland it was so small, if you didn't do everything, you had nothing. If you didn't play in sports, if you weren't in the science club, if you weren't in the theater, if you weren't in music, if you weren't in band, right? You had to participate in everything, and I think that's really good to participate in as much as you can because well-rounded kids make better citizens. So I was the king in Rumpelstiltskin. I had to wear pantyhose for 3 days. I feel your pain, right? But I had the legs for it, so. There's polyester in 1968 and 1981. That's my graduation picture from Hastings College, back when I had some hair. And in the left picture, that was the time I remember that I decided I wanted to become an astronaut. My mom and dad awakened my brother and sister and I on Christmas Eve in 1968. I said 69 the other day, that was incorrect. 1968, after midnight, on Christmas Eve, right? Because we were going to watch the Apollo 8 astronauts go behind the moon for the first time in history. Well, back in those days, you watched the black and white TV, they only had 2 cameras in mission control, and it looked down at all these guys with greasy hair and white shirts and skinny black ties and black pants and pocket protectors smoking cigarettes, right? And the person in charge was the flight director. And we fixed that, ladies. We've now have women in mission control. So remember that, women in mission control. But back then, the flight director said, hey, and go for translunar injection burn. And he'd point, retro, go. Ecom, go. Surgeon, go. Fido, go. Jeepo, go. Capcom, go. Everybody was go, which is a good thing. And then he calls the crew, and he asks them if they're go for this burn to go behind the moon. And I'm thinking, do they really have a choice? But they said they gave the go, and they said, we're going to go. They did the burn, and they made it around the moon for the first time. But when they went behind the moon, all this conversation stopped. And all it was static. And as a kid, Isaac, how old were you, did you say? 10? So you were about my age, right? All I could think of was a volcano on the backside of the moon, and it erupted and blew them out of the sky. That would be bad, right? And then, you're a Harry Potter fan, right? And so what did Harry Potter ride in that one movie with the egg and all that stuff? He rode those dragons, and they burned fire, and it burned everything. I thought a dragon came and burned them out of the sky. I had no idea. I was a kid. But I listened, and I still got static until the Capcom would call, and the Capcom is a person that talks from the ground to the space station or to the spacecraft, and they're usually an astronaut. Back in those days, they were always an astronaut. He says, Apollo 8, Houston, over. Apollo 8, Houston, over. Nothing. And then I heard the Quindar tone. Beep. Houston, Apollo 8. Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. They had made it around the backside of the moon for the first time in human history. Whoa. That's when I said, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to be one of those. But I also figured out later in life, especially at Hastings College, that I was going to need to make a little money. And I was going to have to get a job. Mom and Dad did not have a livable basement that I could hang out in. And so getting employed was the biggest focus going forward. But my mother would tell you that I was 6 years old. And back in Ashland on Main Street in July, they always had a stir up trouble, stir up excitement, stir up fun. They'd close down Main Street, bring in a street carnival. They had bicycle races, a pancake breakfast, a talent show. They crowned the king and the queen at Salt Creek. And then they had a kiddie parade where kids like Anna and Isaac over here, they would march down the block in front of the judges to try to get first prize, second prize, third prize. But we had no Target, we had no Costco, we had no Walmart. So you couldn't just buy Spider-Man. Who's your favorite superhero, Isaac? Iron Man? How about you? How about this guy? He's got a cape. Who's your favorite superhero? Do you have a favorite superhero? Superman, both good choices, right? But we couldn't buy those costumes, so we had to make them up. So Mom, she went into the closet and got a hat box. She cut a hole for my head, a slot for my eyes, put a pipe cleaner connected to a styrofoam ball, and she wrapped me and the whole thing in aluminum foil so I could march in this parade as a Mercury astronaut. Pretty resourceful, but do you know what happened? I lost. I lost to a girl in a blue gingham dress with a picnic basket on her arm, and what was in the basket? A live puppy. That's cheating. But that's what my mother would tell you, that I was 6 years old and that we would discuss me becoming an astronaut. I don't remember that part, but I do remember the part about watching Mission Control. So there's Mom and Dad in front of Ames, or Hilton Coliseum, but Ames, Iowa, when we got my master's degree in aerospace engineering at Iowa State in 1983. And there's Mom 2 days before liftoff when she came to crew quarters and to the beach house, they call it, which is on the beach near the Cape, south of all the launch pads. And I could bring part of my family. My wife, my son got to come, which was pretty unique because he was only 10. And they typically didn't let kids come unless they were 16, but they had changed the rule to allow the kids to be looked at by a doctor, and if they were deemed healthy, he could come to the party. But my daughter Sutton at age 6 could not come, so that was pretty tough, right? At least I got to throw the baseball with Cole on the beach before launch, and he was scheduled to play in the Little League baseball tournament, and they made it toward the World Series. They didn't get all the way, but he was practicing, and the only way the coach would let him come watch his father launch in space was if he promised to practice while he was at the event. So he and I threw the baseball back and forth on the beach, and my brother videotaped it, and that was one of the toughest days of my whole life, right? When I had to hug him and we had to go inside and tell him goodbye. That's pretty tough. So number 2, you have to persevere. It's important that you know that in 1981, thanks to Dr. Sackelman and a guy from Hastings College named Maynard Huntley, I was able to get an internship at the Johnson Space Center for the summer. 465 people applied, 40 were chosen, that's about 8.5%. And Maynard Huntley was a 1961 graduate of Hastings College. He worked in Building 30 at the Johnson Space Center, one floor below where I would end up working when I took my first full-time job there. And Maynard came to hunt pheasants every fall at Hastings. Well, the fall of '81, he was hunting pheasants with a guy named Gary Musgrave. Does anybody know Gary Musgrave? He was the guidance counselor here at Hastings College. So they're stomping through the cornfields, right, looking for pheasants to jump up, and Gary says, "Hey, Maynard, what do you do?" "Well, I work for NASA." "Oh, you work for NASA?" "Yeah, I do." "Well, do you know that we have a kid here at Hastings College? He loves NASA." "You do? Does he know that we have a NASA summer internship program?" "Well, I don't think he does." "Well, maybe I should send you the information, Gary." And Gary says, "Yeah, I think you should." And so they send all the information. We filled it out. We had to have an interview. And so I do the interview in Dr. Sackelman's office. I'm sitting amongst all the books, all the papers, all the stuff in the old science hall. And Doc S is sitting over in his chair like this, watching and listening, and he's whispering encouragement to me. Tell him this, tell him that. Don't tell him about how you destroyed the shotgun down in the bottom of the chemistry lab. And I got selected. It would turn out then in 1998 that over 2,600 people applied to become United States astronauts. I was fortunate enough to be one of 25, which drops that odd down to 1%. But unfortunately, it took me 15 years and 15 applications to do it. So you have to have a dream, and you have to persevere in the pursuit of that dream, okay? Number 3 is also very important. Oh, that's my rejection letter. Can you believe that? And that letter came in 1996 when I got my first interview in year 13. I didn't get selected. I got rejected again, but I got a letter, which was really nice, that told me I was close but no cigar. And it turns out that this letter is in a lady's book on rejection letters. So somebody's making money off my rejection letter. I do have a copy of the book, and I think I bought it on Amazon for $1. So, uh-oh. Ruh-roh. Network issue. Oh, there we go. So number 3, you don't have to be a genius. This is an important one to me because I'm not a genius. I'm not even close. You just have to be a little above average. You can't get C's and D's, right? You need to get A's and B's. More A's than B's is good, but you want to get a combo of those two so you don't be Einstein, you be this Einstein, right? That's closer to Clay than the other guy. And when I went to Iowa State, I had to take a class called Advanced Calculus. And I had gone from a physics curriculum at Hastings College, which is a wonderful curriculum, but it doesn't really prepare you for aerospace engineering. And so I got to Iowa State, had to take Advanced Calculus. I got into it, and I wasn't very good at it. I was struggling. And the teacher was a grad student, age 28, from UCLA. And I was not doing very well. And I had to figure out how to survive, and I worked every problem in the back of each chapter, every single one. And it's in that yellow engineering paper in a folder that I created that's still in my house in Ashland, much to the chagrin of my wife. But I went to the professor and I said, what do I have to do to get a C on the final for the course? What do I have to do to get a C in the course? And he said, good luck. Nice guy. So I got a D. Never gotten a D in my whole life, ever. So I took the class again in the spring. I had a new professor, but in order to survive, I worked every problem in the back of each chapter again, independent of the work that I had done in the previous semester. So I worked them all again, and that helped me get an A the second time around. So perseverance, right? And you don't have to be a genius. Number 4, be proud of who you are. Easy for me. I'm the first and only astronaut from the state of Nebraska. I don't know why there aren't more. I do know that when you're on the astronaut selection committee, they tend to select people like themselves. So when you come from MIT, you look for people from MIT. When you come from Purdue, you look for people from Purdue. When you come from Caltech, you look for people from Caltech. When you have a PhD, you look for PhDs. When you come from Hastings College, people go, where's that? And I was never asked in my whole 15-year career as an astronaut to be part of the selection committee. Now, would I have done the same thing and looked for somebody like me? Probably. But I'm hoping that one day they will have another Nebraska astronaut. So when you look at that picture and you see me coming out from the inside of the space station truss, I don't remember what spacewalk it was, but I wore a big red N on my cuff checklist every spacewalk I did. And the cuff checklist is what you go to if you have an issue. You flip through and you find the tab that says carbon dioxide high. Flip to that. Oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do that. Right? That's why you wear a cuff checklist, but you put empty pages in it just in case you want to write something down, a note for you to remember. And so what I did is I took one of the big red ends that Coach Tom Osborne gave to me on a sheet of paper before I flew, and I took all those to space, and I put one on every cuff checklist page when I went outside. Oh, and I also left one inside the International Space Station hidden from all other astronauts. It's still there. And I will unveil its location when the time is right. And have a little fun, right? I don't believe in having fun at all. That's Rick Mastracchio's foot, that's my head, and I'm in a cargo bay of the Space Shuttle Discovery in our pre-flight checkout. So he pushed me down pretty hard. Come on. There we go. So, that's the kids and the wife. Cole's 14 in that picture, Sutton is 10, and Sue's 29. And the guy that signed the football helmet, his name was like Bob Pelgrim or something like that. Bob Pelgrim. Do you remember that name? Football coach at Nebraska. Oh, Bo Pelini. Oh, yeah, that was his name. So now this should be the, if it works, come on. Come on. There we go. So I don't think I showed this video the other day. This is a video from our STS-131 launch. That's our mission patch. It was designed by Dottie Metcalf Lindenberger, a former high school teacher from Seattle, Washington. We had to use a circle for the shape of our patch because it's the only way we could get Metcalf Lindenberger and all the other names of the crew members onto the patch. So there was Dex and Jim Dutton. There's Dottie. There's Clay. And there's Stephanie Wilson from Harvard. And there's Naoko Yamazaki from Japan. We had sleep shifted so that we were going to launch near midnight on Easter, the day after Easter in 2010. So we're waiting to get on the bus there, and they loved Naoko. Naoko-san, Naoko-san, the whole country of Japan was there. We go out to the pad, and we wave up to the guys in the cockpit who are getting it ready. There's Dex, Dottie's in the middle, Rick's in the back, and Jim's on the left. Dutton, you can't see him. We rolled back the white room, and that's Dex's window. You can turn up the volume now. The 3 main engines come on. 6 seconds prior to liftoff, will come up to full power. At T-minus 0, the solid rocket motor's light, and everybody's going somewhere. Hopefully where we're going is where we want to go. But now listen for the rookies.
Houston, Discovery, roll program.
Veteran Commander.
Discovery.
Veteran Capcom.
Back to 60,000 feet. Oh, geez. How about that, huh? That's crazy. There's a power behind it.
Yeah. Oh, this is crazy. Those are rookies. The two solids go for 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Then they blast off the side with explosives and parachute down to the Atlantic. The 3 main engines burn for 8 minutes and 31 seconds. And we're on a trajectory to head to orbit in the International Space Station. Here are the 2 solids blowing off. And they have video cameras on them to look at the shuttle tiles on the back. And there they're falling away, and we just keep going. And that's an arc of our trajectory, probably about 3 minutes in. And the guy was drinking a Corona Light. So, to look out at this kind of creation out here and not believe in God is not possible. Those are the words of John Glenn. John Glenn flew as a Mercury astronaut in the very beginning, but he also flew again at age 77 on the space shuttle. I got to meet him. I was sitting in church just like this. I was sitting in the next to the back row that week. And all of a sudden there was a big commotion behind me, and my wife and I turned around, and there was Annie Glenn and John Glenn sitting right behind me. And I'd just been selected to be a baby astronaut. Well, that's kind of cool for a baby astronaut at Webster Presbyterian, the Church of the Astronauts in Texas, to sit down and turn around and see and meet John Glenn for the first time. I would end up riding in my first parade in Houston because of John Glenn and his mission into space and his safe return. That was kind of cool, but to say that we were elders and deacons in the same church, I'm pretty proud of that. So, do you want to go there? Do you? What do you think, Isaac? You want to go there? You know where that is? You want to guess? Take a guess. Yeah, boy. That's Mars. You want to go there? Or you want to go here? Oh, Niagara Falls. Oh, the Great Salt Lake. Oh, glaciers in Patagonia in South America. Oh, the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. Oh, Dubai. And all those cool things they were building back in 2007, which are finished now, right? You can go stay there. Those are all beautiful places, right? So, do you want to go to Mars, or do you want to stay here? I want to stay here. Because astronauts get exposed to what they call the orbital perspective, the overview effect, to be able to go and look at your Earth from above, right? A call to action for each of us is the orbital perspective to care for the most important spaceship of all, planet Earth. Makes sense to me. You know, Stephen Hawking, brilliant doctor, he said we should abandon Earth. Are you nuts? We're it. Earth is it. As Doc S. pointed out to me the other day, he was marveling about the periodic table. Think about it. One atom, or one proton, 2 protons, 3 protons, 4, right? It's all there, the periodic table, right? Electrons, neutrons, protons, atoms, molecules, everything we need as humans to survive and live is right here. We don't know if any of that's on Mars. We think there might be stuff on Mars, but we're not sure. We think there's ice on the moon, in the craters at the South Pole. Well, that's cool. How do we drink it? I don't know. How do we drink it? It takes a lot of technology development to be able to harness what we know might be there. That's what's so cool about faith and science. We know there's ice at the south pole of the moon. But we don't know how to get it out. We don't know how to make it so we can drink it or pour it on a plant or something. But we will. We'll figure it out because we have a developing brain given to us by the grace of God. The Cro-Magnon man, he had no idea what was going on, right? He just had a stick and he hit stuff until he could figure out how to kill something, and then he could skin it, and then he could figure out how to make fire, and then he could cook it and eat it. Wow, look how far we've come. My brother-in-law, Phil, he has a grill. He makes grunting noises when he grills. I think Cro-Magnon man might have done that the same, but that's what's important. The orbital perspective, I agree with all of this. We need to protect the spaceship Earth. It's all we have. I would love for us to be in the United Federation of Planets with Captain James T. Kirk or Jean-Luc Picard. I would love that. But we're not there yet. How do we get there? That's a tough nut to crack. A lot of people in the world hate what happens over here in North America. A lot of people in the Middle East want us to be gone. The guy in North Korea, I don't know what he thinks, but I don't trust him. And how about China? Right? It's a scary world out there, right? And as long as people have envy, as long as people are jealous, and as long as people are greedy, we're going to have a tough time getting to the orbital perspective. Which is why, for people like us, faith is so important. If we have faith in the end result, and we use science to help us figure out and solve the problems that we presented ourselves at Earth, we can stay on Earth, which is where we're supposed to be. Think about the solar system. How many planets? How many planets in the solar system? Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. No? 9 total, right? Earth is one of them. Our solar system is in the Milky Way. How many people are on any other planets beside Earth? None. Oh, we should go to the moon Titan around Saturn. We should live there. Good luck with that. Or Mars, or any of them, right? And then our solar system in the Milky Way, we're it. We are it. And the universe is a big place. But see, you remember these people that did that? They didn't have calculators. They didn't have computers. They didn't have slide rules. But they had a brain, and they had a dream and a vision of what could be. And look what they did. It's still there. We could sit in it. So, I told this the other day, Friday, I believe the universe is a huge pizza. It's an infinite pizza. And we are on the crust on the right there. And all we've done is send humans safely to the moon and back, 238,000 miles away. We've sent some probes further than that, but we've only done humans 238,000 miles, right? So what if on this infinite pizza on the opposite crust is a species doing exactly what we're doing? Oh. Doc S used to do that. Oh. How are we going to meet them at the pepperoni in the middle? It's going to take money, it's going to take time, and it's going to take a developing brain to figure out the technology that we need to get from where we are today to meet somebody else. Because just because I've never seen another species doesn't mean they don't exist. Because I've never seen God, but I believe He exists. Same thing. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't there. So, we have the power to change lives. We want to change Isaac and Anna's life. We want to change their lives, right? Tell me your name again, sweetheart. I'm sorry. Maddie. Yeah, we want to change Maddie's life. We want to help Maddie be the best that she can be. We want to help Isaac become a brain surgeon, maybe. Would you do that? Maybe. Yeah. But that's what we're here for. We have the power to change lives. Just like that little boy is the commander of his space shuttle at Rocket Park at the Kennedy Space Center. He's saving the world in his mission, right? It's what we should do. So I go to Isaiah 41:10. So, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you. I am your righteous right hand. Don't have to see him to know he's there. And we have a brain to solve the scientific problems that we need to solve to be able to make pollution less, to figure out ways to create power for all people on the earth. It's all right there for us. So, why are you snickering, man? So people ask, what was it like to be an astronaut and live and work in space? I was Superman every day. I flew to breakfast. Then I flew to work. If I needed a break, I flew into the bathroom, and I flew while I was going to the bathroom. I was faster than the speeding bullet, 17,500 miles per hour, 5 miles every single second. Didn't take long to go from Lincoln to Omaha in outer space, about 12 seconds. I was more powerful than the locomotive. I could lift anything with one hand. I was able to leap tall buildings in a single bound because none of them were high enough to be at 230 miles. And I stood for truth, justice, and the American way. So what I want to do now is I want to let you guys ask me a few questions, and then I want to end with one story for you if you'll let me do that. So if you have any questions, comments, or cheap shots, now's the time. And if you don't, that's okay too.
Yeah, I'm a 20-year Navy veteran, enlisted.
Thank you for your
electronics
service, sir.
You're welcome very much. I had a good job, as it turned out. One of the things I got to do while I was in the Navy was take a 2-month TAD trip on a diesel submarine.
Lucky you.
It was a very interesting 2 months.
I bet it was.
One of the aspects was very bad. We were at a 45-degree down angle, which is basically sinking, and the other was we surfaced and told the destroyer that was playing games with us that we're done playing now, we're going home. And on the way home, the captain allowed bridge liberty, sail liberty. And many of you have probably been on cruise ships. Cruise ships are noisy and bright and you don't see anything. On a diesel submarine running on batteries at night, you see any little speck of light. And I'm sure you've seen the stars when they're like more than you can imagine. Mm-hmm. What I was curious about, though, with the space program is a lot of it seems similar to the diesel sub experience, but I was wondering, as you blast off, noise, G-forces, vibration, a lot of things going on. And then suddenly the engine shut off and you're weightless. Mm-hmm. Does your mind kind of trip a little bit and say, wait a minute, what happened? Let me get a grip on something here.
No, it's a great analogy, though, and thank you for your service. So he lived in a submarine, and I lived underwater for 2 weeks, 65 feet below the surface of the Atlantic Ocean near Key Largo, Florida. So I have a little bit of a sense of what you did, and the idea there was to put us in a place that was extreme, to put us in a place where we had to work together to solve problems, to survive, and where we had to be put under stress, right? Astronauts, submariners are under stress all the time. And they have to figure out how to deal with each other, how to work together, how to survive, right? How to keep mentally sharp and fit. And so the analogies are very similar. But on a launch to space, it's the greatest roller coaster ride ever known to humans. It starts out really bumpy and really loud and really shaky, but you don't care because you're high-fiving, your fist bumping, yeah, here we go. But you're also watching all your data to make sure that something isn't squirrely. Because if it gets squirrely, your day can go to heck in a handbasket really fast, as it can in a submarine as well. Then once the solids pop off, it's very smooth and you start to accelerate very quickly, and that's where you weigh about 3 times your weight, 3 times the force of gravity. 2.7 actually. It's not too bad. It's like you have 2 or 3 of gorillas sitting on your chest. But that's okay, because it goes away when the engine shut off and psst, you hear this psst, and you're weightless. And then you see stuff flying in front of you and around you that didn't get tied down. But that was the point where my job was to get out of my suit. I had to take my helmet and my gloves off first. I had hooked my gloves together with a hook, and I had to put them in a bag that was strapped to my leg, and then I had to grab my helmet, put my gloves in my helmet, and shove my helmet in my bag. But when I took my helmet off, I let go of it, and I turned to get my bag, and I went back, and there was my helmet right where I left it. That's cool. I mean, that is really cool. So I put all that stuff away, and then I got out of my boots and put them in there, and then I took my suit, and you had to roll your suit up and put it in a certain place. And then I had to go to the bathroom, because that was my job, was to go turn on the bathroom, turn on the kitchen, which isn't much of a kitchen, then to go to the bathroom and empty my bladder, because if astronauts are in weightless environment, their bladder doesn't work anymore, and the sensors that say, hey, it's time to pee, your bladder's full, they don't know it's full because everything's weightless, right? And so if you don't go to the bathroom, your bladder keeps filling and filling and filling and filling, and then you have very big issues. So that was my first job. I went to the bathroom, put my clothes on, shorts and a shirt, and came back out to help everybody else, because at that time, a crew of 7, 5 of them were puking their brains out. And I was not, and one other guy was not, and so we did all the work we could do and had to do to get everything ready while those guys were yakking chunks, which makes you pretty invaluable as a crew member. Yes?
I gotta ask, so do you have like a time clock for bathroom schedule?
Oh, no, no,
How
no.
does this work?
Bathrooming is, there's one bathroom on the shuttle. There are 2 bathrooms now on the space station. We had 1 bathroom when I lived on the space station, but toilet ops are toilet ops, right? You have to wait until the toilet's available, and it had a couple Venetian blinds you covered over. And my story about my first time in space, the only time I was scared was the first time I had to do number 2 in the Space Shuttle Atlantis. I went in there, I closed the Venetian blinds, I looked at the cue card, and I followed every step religiously. I read it 3 or 4 times. I did everything it said, check, double check, triple check, right? And when everything was done, I was successful. I was very excited. I was very happy because I was very scared. But the one thing I learned was every time I went to the bathroom from that first day to the rest of my career, I took off all my clothes every time I went to the bathroom, because when you're in a weightless environment and you're trying to do bathroom ops and this happens, it's very disconcerting, right? But we just waited our turn. I remember floating in the bathroom one time, and every crew member has a color. And your color is where you have a grommet in your color, and you stick your washcloth, and you stick your towel, and you stick your stuff. And I remember going in there and looking, and in weightlessness, all those towels that are in the grommet, you have to kind of go like you're in the jungle to fly in back to the toilet. And one of them was just covered in brown stuff. Oh, that made me really nervous. Turns out it was makeup. But man, was I scared for a while. Oh, no! Right? Anybody else? There's one way in the back.
Well, first I was just going to share something that was so cool. Do you know we got to interview Clay live during the evening news? That was so fun. And then Seth was asking you all sorts of questions, my old co-anchor Seth Denny. And then he made some joke like, is the government, like who's paying for this phone bill? This must be very expensive. That was so cool. Did you have a Hastings College pennant with you? I feel like, and you had a big N on, and that was so amazing that you were able to share your story with us live on the air.
That was one of the cool things to do. We did one with Sharon Bell Brooks is here today, and Sharon, NET made a documentary called Homemade Astronaut, and you can watch it for free now on the internet. You just have to Google Homemade Astronaut, and you'll find it. And one of the scenes in that was I was in space, and there were people at Hastings College in the Gray Center, maybe? Is that where you were? Well, I couldn't see any of them. They could all see me, but I couldn't see them, right? And so the way the story goes, and I wouldn't learn this until I watched the documentary when I came back from space, but Sharon has my mom, Alice, come up to the microphone. And, you know, since I can't see anybody, right, typically, hey, this is Joe Bob, and well, she brings my mom up and she says, tell him who you are. And my mom says, he knows who I am. Well, as soon as I heard her voice, I knew who she was, and so I'm on the screen and I blew her a kiss. And she said, "That's all I needed." And then I lost it. Because at the time she had lung cancer. And I didn't know if I would get to see her again. I would land at the Kennedy Space Center, and we were supposed to spend the night in Florida, in Cocoa Beach, in a condominium, right, with our families, my wife, my kids. And President Bush at the time was in Crawford, Texas doing something, and he decreed that, hey, my plane is at Ellington Field in Houston, Texas, and before I leave to go back to DC, I'd like to welcome the crew of STS-120, the crew that brought me home. I would like to welcome them back to Earth. Well, so we got a call from our commander and said, hey, we're not going to spend the night. We're going to go get on the plane and we're going to fly back to Texas. Well, to meet the president, that was okay. But I hadn't seen my mom yet. And so I asked crew quarters to the boss, and I said, is there any way possible that I could go see my mom? Because the plan was, if I was going to be in Cocoa Beach, my sister and everybody were going to bring mom to me. Well, they broke some rules, and they allowed my mother to come to me. And so she came out with my brother and his family, and Lori and her family, and my brother. They were all there with Alice. And I was pretty weak. I was pretty tired. I had lost a lot of weight in space. That's the first 3 letters of space spell spa. Took you guys a while. So I had lost about 12 pounds, and I was sitting there and I was pretty exhausted. I was in my flight suit and I had a monitor on because I was part of an experiment to measure how my body was performing blood pressure-wise with my heart, my brain, and my circulation system. But I got to see mom and touch mom and show her that I was real again, because that's what she needed. She needed to hold me, to touch me, to know that I was real. She died 3 weeks later. So, because of the grace of God, she was able to battle cancer for 6 months while I was in space, such that I could come home and I could touch her and hold her and tell her I loved her one more time. So, God is there, and He watches out for each and every one of us. So let me close with a story. I think it's a pretty good one. On June the 8th, 2007, I would launch with the crew of STS-117 on the Space Shuttle Atlantis, headed for the International Space Station. STS-117 was not my original crew, but I got moved up because of problems with the Space Shuttle processing flow, and I launched earlier than I was expected to launch. So STS-117 would launch on June 8, 2007, which would have been my father's 77th birthday. It also turns out that STS-117, my parking space as an astronaut at the Johnson Space Center, one of the few perks you get is you get a parking space. My parking space, E-117. So I launch into space with the crew on Atlantis, and we get to the International Space Station, and we dock, and everything's successful. We go through a pretty tough mission. Everything goes really well. There's a tear on the shuttle that we have to repair with a spacewalk, but I'm not allowed to spacewalk yet because the STS-117 crew is going to do all that while they're there, and then they go home. So it's time for them to leave. We're all in front of the hatch, and they fly out. Their commander was a Marine, Rick Sturkow, and so everything was by the Marine book, right? And so the commander went first, the pilot went second, mission specialist 1, then mission specialist 2, 3, 4, 5. And they took Sonny Williams. You remember that name? Sonny Williams from the Starliner mission? I replaced Sonny on the International Space Station back in 2007, her very first flight. So they're all through the hatch. The last guy is a guy named Danny Olivas. Danny Olivas is a brilliant man. He's a materials engineer from El Paso, Texas. And he looks at me, and we were classmates in the class of 98. And he looks at me, and we're both floating in front of the hatch. He looks at me, and he sticks out his hand, and he says, "Man, am I glad I'm not you?" And he dives through the hatch and disappears. Oh, wow. Those were powerful words. Because about 30 minutes later, we had closed the hatch and tightened everything up, made sure the seal was good, and I watched the Space Shuttle Atlantis slowly sail beneath the space station's lab window on its way back to Earth. At that time, I probably had 148 days to go, right? But everything went well, and then STS-117 was supposed to land at the Kennedy Space Center, but there was weather problems at the Kennedy Space Center, so they landed in California at Edwards Air Force Base. And when you do that, you have to get the shuttle back to Florida for reprocessing for its next flight. So those guys landed that night, and the next day they picked the shuttle up and they put it on top of a 747 called the Shuttle Carrier Aircraft, and they were going to fly it back across country back to Florida. Well, in order to do that, you do two legs. And you look for weather patterns, you look for traffic patterns to make sure that you're not going through weather, that you're not going through an area of high traffic airspace. And so you break it into two legs. So they flew from Edwards Air Force Base in California to Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska. And whenever they do that, they take a big 2-mile arc and they fly the shuttle in two big circles so that everybody can see that vehicle and the amount of engineering and technology and science that has gone into what just went to space. And the coolest thing, it flew over the place where I was born and raised, within view of every person that wanted to see her that had something to do with my life and career. They would go on back to Florida, we would finish our mission, and we're getting toward October, the month of October, when STS-120 was going to launch and come up to the space station, and they were going to bring me home and bring my replacement, a fellow named Dan Tawney. And they launched on time. Every single thing that ever happened to me in space, every single thing launched exactly on time, docked exactly on time. Never late, never early, exactly on time. So STS-120 arrives with Commander Pam Melroy. We had a really rough mission there too, because that was the one where a solar panel was torn, and we had to put an astronaut on the end of two robotic arms connected together to make it reach long enough so he could get out and repair it with the repair tools that were designed by the astronaut and the team on the ground and given to us to build in outer space. Pretty exhausting, but very successful. It was our own Apollo 13. Well, it was time to go home, and Pam Melroy said, you know, our trajectory is going to make me land this sucker in the dark at the Kennedy Space Center. I'd really rather land in the light time. We're exhausted. We've worked really hard. I'm the pilot or the commander. I'm going to fly it. I'd love to do it in daylight rather than darkness. Oh, I don't know if we can do that, Pam, because the last time we did that was Columbia, and they came in over the continental United States and exploded over northeast Texas. And we've decided that we don't want to do that anymore over the continental U.S. because we want to protect the people on the ground. Well, I know that, sirs, but it would really help us and get us safe and make me feel better. So they had a meeting and they said, okay, we're going to let you do it. We're going to change your trajectory while you're sleeping tonight, and we're going to alter it so that you're going to come in over Seattle, Washington, and you're going to sail across the Midwest, and you're going to come down to Florida and land in daylight. So what happens is we're traveling 17,500 miles per hour, 5 miles every single second, right? And when we come in over northwest United States, we're humming pretty fast. And in order to bleed that speed down to the 200 knots that we're going to land at, we have to burn it off. Just like when you throw a rock across a pond, and when it hits the first time, there's friction and slows it down. It hits again, more friction slows it down, until it finally is slow enough that gravity tugs it gently into the water. Same idea, except the shuttle is the rock. We use the black tiles on her belly, and we bank not against water, but against the atmosphere. And those are called roll reversals. So on entry day, we're screaming in over Seattle, Washington, and coming across the Midwest. And I'm strapped into my seat on the middeck. I can't see anything, but I can hear everything. And I hear Pam Melroy call to the ground, Houston, Discovery on air to ground 1. We're getting ready to initiate our first roll reversal over the great state of Nebraska. Whoa, I didn't ask her to do that. I didn't make any request. She did it because she knew how much the state meant to me. That's pretty cool. So we start our roll reversals. We're slowing down, and we whip down over Florida. We make a big high-octane turn, and we're going to land on runway 1533. And by the way, did I mention when I flew up on STS-117, I was going to become an Expedition 15, Expedition 15 crew member. And how many times did I apply to be an astronaut, Manny? 15? How many letters in Clayton Anderson? 15? Right? And so here we were, sailing into runway 15 and 33. We have a successful landing. And it turns out we landed on November the 7th. If you write the date, November the 7th, what number is that? 117. And you know what November 7th was, 2007? It was Susan and my 15th wedding anniversary. So, if you don't think there's a power somewhere out there that has a plan for each and every one of us, that knows exactly where we are in our life and what we might need to succeed, then you and I need to have a talk out in the hallway. Because I truly believe that there is a higher power that allowed this small town kid from Ashland, Nebraska to live his dream. So thank you for having faith. Thank you for believing in me and for having me. Doc S., I owe you beyond measure, sir. Thank you.